Hi there. I'm a bit puzzled with the position of Max Kaiser when he talks about oil and oil depletion, because he still says that it requires capital to drill for oil. And the fact that he does without explaining exactly what capital is a bit puzzling, because if you don't explain what it is and you keep the myth of meaningful capital outside energy resources going, you're actually helping and creating the powerful myth that is around Wall Street. Or is no, and of course part of it is not a myth, part of it is about the fact that Wall Street and the money of that is still good for oil. Oil is still being secured by the US and can still be purchased with dollars. The moment that breaks down, the whole game for the US breaks down, but the game they have going right now, which completely determines their policy, is that they have an oil spigot, they can print dollars to supply that oil to all kinds of people, and they see themselves as a benign deliverer of energy to China, for instance, so that China can manufacture and then the US can import. The way that Max Kaiser and others talk about it, I don't think clarifies it, so you don't really recognize where the loophole is, where the opening is for a population that's uprising. You know, you can have a revolt or an uprising, but it's not going to help you if you're just out there in the streets shouting, if you don't know what the solution is. The solution is obvious if you understand that money and energy are 100% related and that money is a way to distribute energy. Because then you know that if you can make renewable energy, you can make money based on renewable energy distribution, and you can be free of the banks, or you can have a bank that does that, and it doesn't have to cost your environment, and of course the source is ultimately limitless, and then it's just about creating as much renewable sources as possible. If you talk about, for instance, there's capital needed to get more oil out of the ground, you're creating the myth, because the capital needed to get more oil out of the ground is oil. You have to allocate oil in order to make sure that the equipment is there, that people can live and are supplied with the goods and services that they need. It's all based on fossil fuels these days. There's no other source, at least not a significant one yet. And that's because the myth is kept going and everybody tries to get their hands on money and then spends it on fossil fuels. You know, so in my opinion, you should never worry about the reduction of value of the dollar, all that stuff. What you should worry about is your energy supply, because if you, let's say, if you imagine that you have a nuclear power plant in the middle of America that makes enough energy for the whole of America, then that energy only has to be distributed. And how do you do that? Well, you create a big bank next to it, extends credit to everybody that wants to buy a little bit of that electricity or that energy, and then everything would be produced based on how that money is distributed through society, because you have to have a way in which to distribute things, to allocate them in a smart way. And then of course you can say, well, you try to be most efficient, then you get more, because you use it to create more wealth per kilowatt hour or something like that. You know, in that light, I also don't understand videos that are lamenting the fact that consumers are reducing spending, and also the oil credit system is lamenting that because it creates revenue for them, that there's less spending. But you could also say, well, it's a good thing that there's less spending because apparently people can get by with less, which means that you can expend less energy and in the current situation do less damage to the planet, while people are still maintaining a lifestyle. See, and food stamps are just an energy ration. And of course I think that, you know, if you don't let that depend on fossil fuels, then there's no gradual reduction of the energy supply. If you build the renewables at the same time as you are using the fossil fuels to make the food, you'll get renewables coming online, so you can have wind-based fertilizer, wind-based desalination, wind-based logistics, or electricity-based logistics, hydrogen logistics, all these types of renewable ways of doing things. And they slowly replace the people that live, let's say, the supply of goods to the people that live on food stamps that are basically rationed. A large part of the US population is now rationed in their consumption. And then slowly you can say, well, okay, now the food stamps buy more than they used to, because you have so much renewable energy that you can produce more for the same food stamps. It's all about energy, in my opinion. You know, Jim Rickards, he said something which I also thought was quite stupid, and now I probably can't remember. I have to think what it was. Oh yeah, he said the most amazing thing. You know, that really disqualifies him 100% in my eyes. He says, well, the Greek default was of course a real default, but it shouldn't have, you know, it should have counted as a real default. He said, well, you know, those people with the CDSs haven't been paid out now, but you know, I don't agree with the CDS system, credit default swap, and these insurance policies on loans that are not covered by the insurers. But I don't agree with them. But you know, if you have them, then make sure that you pay them out right. So I don't agree with you stealing my television, but if you do, then take the remote control with you, please, because you know, it's complete nonsense. So I detect a little bit of nostalgia and fear of abandoning a US system, either that or a little bit of Stockholm syndrome in some of the people talking about the US financial system. It has to go, it's nonsense. It's now chewing up Solar One, which is a big solar panel producer, because of course it went to the stock exchange and it capitalized on their profits, which were well, apparently good, and now it's being the stock is being manipulated all, you know, down, and there's of course news about the fact that it's not going well with solar panels and all stuff. That's just nonsense. It's just they're just killing it. That's what you can do in the stock market where 70% of the trade is artificial. If people want to be free and want to avoid violent revolutions and all that stuff, they have to start demanding renewable power and start demanding resources allocated to building renewable power at cost to other people, and definitely at cost to the market, because the market should provide you with what you need, not with what somebody wants to sell you. You know, it's really not about luxury, at least for a period of time. You can make a new money system and say, well, you know, if we have a surplus of the renewable energy and we can have the credit extended to production of nonsense, like all kinds of luxury goods that make you waste time. And you can waste time because you're not building renewable power sources, and you're not insulating your house, and you're not planting trees, and you're not rebuilding, let's say, the whole backbone of life in society, which has been killed by the oil credit death cult. Then, you know, and of course that time will come, in my opinion. There will be, I see there's three phases. There's the pre-industrial phase, where there was lots of hard labor. Then there's the industrial phase, in which the oil credit system hijacked factories. People became competitors with robotic system, and then I generalize because everything that's a machine, in my eyes, is a robot. So it doesn't have to be intelligent, in my opinion. A sewing machine is as much a machine. And of course it took work out of the hands of the people that were very happy at first when it was hard labor. But in the end it is now becoming every kind of labor. And the conundrum, the paradox that you get into is that how do you earn money if everything that really needs to be done is done by machines? And if those machines produce the goods that you should buy because you want to have a market, where do you earn the money to buy those goods if you're not part of the producers and you're not earning anything? So you have to be given those things for next to nothing or free, or you have to be given an income, either one or the other. But that's not part of Keynesian economics. That will be part of the robo-economics, principles of which I'm outlining amongst others in this video. And if those but that means that the third era that we are entering after the industrial one is the one in which renewables power machines. And we still have to keep an eye on the fact that machines don't make things that are dangerous for society, like DDT or nuclear power plants or whatever, things that are poisonous, unhealthy, bad quality. But, and I wrote about this a long time ago, if the world wasn't dying, which we can definitely do something about, maybe not successfully, but at least you know, very interesting for a biosphere. But you know, apart from all that, the renewable energy sources will create a world in which it's up to us to decide what we like, eventually, because energy will be a marginal question, especially when you leave the maintenance of energy sources over to robots. You know, then you really don't need much maintenance anymore, not humans at least. but the humans have to decide what they want to spend their energy on and what they want to produce. And eventually it could be one big pleasure garden. You know, if climate change is not actually successful in killing all life in the oceans, and all the methane is not escaped in the atmosphere, or even if it is, that we find a solution for that, and if the tectonics are not that fucked up that that we're going to die in a 2012 type scenario of ripping up the earth, which is happening with the increased number of earthquakes, then there might be a very nice future for humanity, because we basically have solved the problem, which is that oil-based machines are not in line with the normal organic processes in nature. Renewable-based machines are. They do what they do, just like plants do what they do. They grow based on renewable energies. Anyway, yeah, there's a guy called Dutch Incense. He makes videos about earthquakes, and but he's talking nonsense also, and that's a little bit of a problem, because sometimes you have an information source, and then if you want to be a noise producer, you add some talk about harp and about Nibiru, all that nonsense in it. And then you get disqualified by the majority of people watching the video. And this guy was talking about weather patterns that actually show volcanic emissions. And then in another video he was talking about harp patterns in the weather, where you get circular patterns in the weather images. Anybody with let's say 2 years experience in the real world recognizes those patterns as radar artifacts, because they're circular, they're around cities, so it's basically radar in the city, so somewhere in the middle, of course, is covering an area around the city, is lighting it up with radar radiation, which is reflected against the clouds and all that stuff, and that is always a circle. You know the old radar screens, they were circular. And then sometimes maybe the artifact is only on the borders of the radius, or only fragments, and then you see like a shimmery, unclear surface. And why is that? Of course, because these radars try to reduce the artifact. They try to reduce that effect. Actually, if they were perfect, they would eliminate it. But they still see only the clouds that are within the range of the radar station. So it's unavoidable that a single rain radar creates a circular pattern. Anyway, that's enough for now. I think that Max Kaiser I interviewed him, and I'm a big fan, so respect, but I hope I think that's like this, it's just not so nice. He should, I think, dump the automatic earthwoman. She's not helpful, and then start talking about oil without having such inputs. And Kunstler also, he's a good writer, but he doesn't get it.